Hi. So if you want to send 100,000 emails that get delivered, it could be cold or mass campaigns. Keep watching. If you are another agency, then follow this checklist because this will get you great results. And you can pass this thing to your employees, or even if you are a senior marketing executive in a product or a service company, you can pass this on to your juniors and ask them to follow this, and you will see a huge boost following this system. So first thing first, what is the objective? Objective in any B2B cold email campaign is to generate replies, right? If not replies, then it's clicks. But mostly we aim for replies. The second thing is usually what we have seen is a very good metric to see if emails are getting delivered is how many people are opening them. So we usually aim between anywhere between 40 to 80% open rate in every email campaign, right? Another KPI we monitor internally is how many months did the new email address that we created on a new domain last? Like, like it was permanently marked as spam. Whatever we did not help improve its open rate, right? And there are few things, especially if you're someone working day to day on email, is like on your mobile, keep your Chrome tabs open with uh, with your email marketing software, and every morning see what has been the open rate the night before if you have set up some automation, and so that after that morning in the afternoon you can tweak something so that your next day is better, right? And if you are someone who actually does email a lot, follow this checklist. I follow it, and I it helps me make sure that pretty much all our emails end up in the right place, and our team also. So now what you have seen is, so this is my Airtable, right? So this is for first time. By the way, you will not get a copy of this, so take a screenshot. This is for internal our agency purposes. But yes, take a screenshot of this thing. And another thing is our checklist, which is a QA checklist. And in this thing, this is the thing we follow regularly. So what we do is usually when we have a client, we usually duplicate this, right? And for example, Bizamps is a client, so we make sure to check marks all these things and add whichever email IDs we are emailing from, whoever the team member, we mark that person over here. And yeah, we make sure that anytime that person's emails are not ending up where they are, we quickly come back and see where did we make a mistake. So first thing first, the one thing you want to remember is that emails can be spoofed. So let's start from a hacking perspective, or a phishing perspective. I can pose that my email can go from Elon at spacex.com, right? I can send that email and the person will show, okay, this email has come from email at spacex.com, but yes, they will show a little marker that this email is not authenticated, right? And usually in that case, those emails end up in the spam folder, but it will show it came from Elon at spacex.com. So that's number one. So because of that, we have to set up uh, all the DNS records, domain authentication, like that's DKIM, which is domain keys, identity management, SPF, DMARC, and in some cases we also set up what we call BIMI. We'll go through it. But yeah, this is why email email service providers really look that if the email that is coming, what is the DNS record of it? And if this thing is not there, you will probably end up in the spam folder, because you can say you are anyone, right? Um, Another thing, when you are contacting someone or interrupting them, so cold emails, cold LinkedIn messages, even ads, anything that is not wanted or asked for, usually that technology needs a warm up, right? So this everything I'm talking about, at least in the warm up perspective, this thing will apply equally to email, to LinkedIn, and even to ads, right? Another thing that you want to know is that the artificial intelligence of the email service providers actually see how people are interacting with your emails. So for example, the first email batch you have sent, no one opens that email, right? And people recognize their name, email ends up in their inbox. What basically Google sees is like no one is interacting with their emails. So we will push them. They're probably not required. So they push them first to promotions or updates and then finally to spam. So you will see in the starting your open rate will be high, but then it will go low. And they micro check this behavior a lot. So we have to kind of maintain this behavior. And how we will do that, I will um, I will follow up in the warm-up section. Another thing, you need to understand the difference between your own SMTP server. So you can create your own virtual machine and it can send emails, right? Every IP can send an email. So you can create your own virtual machine and send emails. Or you can get a service like SENDGRID or Amazon SES. So that's one thing where you basically get a new subdomain, get a new IP from them, or get a shared IP with them. By the way, once I got a shared IP, what happened was, okay, someone else on that shared IP sent a spam email that I'm from Nigeria and I want like $1 million, and my IP got banned because we were on the shared IP. So be on the outlook for that. But otherwise, SendGrid has very good, or Amazon SE has very good reputation in the market because usually people use it to send transactional email. Their email usually ends up in the updates folder or the promotions folder, but still not in the spam folder. Now, the next thing you can look at is services like G Suite or Outlook. So these are not made for mass email. And what actually happens is you are using the reputation of Google or Microsoft and their IP servers. So you automatically, and because you cannot send more than, let's say, 2,000 emails in G Suite or 10,000 emails in Outlook per month, per day, usually people don't spam using this. Like people who send a million emails send using their own SMTP server. So in that case, what happens is like you're renting Outlook or G Suite's reputation, and most of your emails kind of end up in your primary inbox, right? They will either end up in primary inbox or they'll end up probably in the spam folder. Like I have not seen, pretty much there's no in between right there, right? So you have to maintain your reputation over there. So when you're doing cold email, when you want responses and not just clicks, and it's a bit focused effort, go for Outlook or G Suite, right? Another thing, SMTP is different from automation software. So for example, I can have SendGrid as my SMTP, but the automation software. So if you go into SendGrid's pricing, I have SendGrid open over here. So this is something else. But if you open SendGrid's pricing, what you will see is they have two pricing plans. One is for marketing campaigns where the they give you a bunch of emails and they allow you access their marketing software that allows you to send email or control the email or design the emails, right? And second is API. APIs is just like they don't allow you access to their software to design or send emails, but the API thing is a bit cheaper, right? So what you can do is you can get their API, which is a bit cheaper, and you can add it. You can put your own mass emailing software like MailWiz, or people have this Motic, right? So you can integrate the API, the sending email with the software to basically automate or control or throttle or do whatever you want to do, right? Similarly, on G Suite or on Outlook, what you do is you put a cold outreach automation software on top of it. So your SMTP kind of becomes your G Suite inbox, but on top of that, you can add Mailshake, Outplay, Limlist, Quick Mail, stuff like that. And that automates the email, that actually sends the email, it tracks the email, it does everything else. It gives you analytics and everything, right? So there's a difference between SMTP and automation software. So both has different pricing. You can look at pricing of that, and then you can combine it. Usually when you start, you might start with a Mailchimp package that includes both their sending server and automation software, or SendGrid with their both SMTP and their automation software. And the next tip I have stole from quickmail.com. So basically what this say is what they have observed, that when they are doing outreach, usually when they're using Google Suite, if they prepay 6 months, then they get a better open rate and delivery rate. And also they promote Outlook much better. Uh, you know, they see Outlook as a much better alternative for outreach, right? The next thing is plain text and HTML. So usually when we are doing cold email that is going from G Suite or outreach, we usually do plain text because the number of emails are either way going less. So we want them people to reply back to us, right? And generate, get in a conversation with us. While when we are using a SMTP or a SENDGRID, we're usually sending an email to probably, I don't know, 100,000 people or 10,000 people. In that case, we usually send them an HTML email. We don't want too many people replying back to us. In some case we do, but usually we don't. And we send a HTML email where the people know, okay, this is the image, this is what I'll get, and we want to entice a click over there. So yeah. So remember, there's a difference between that, and usually if you use HTML in G Suite's email, you might get, or outreach via Outlook, you might get spammed because normal people don't send Outlook, HTML email and outreach softwares. Okay. Now, usually this is our internal checklist, and if you're an internal person, you know that. So every time we get a new client, what we do is we duplicate this thing, right? And we put the name of the prospect. So for example, what is the client? Here the client is Bizamps, and then is quality assurance checklist, right? And now what we have to do over here is that the very first thing we do is we get, when we are setting up a new domain, from which we have to send out the emails, especially the cold emails, right? The new domains, we want it from on .com or .org or .net. You don't want use .club or .xyz, which are cheap domains, because those are usually used more by spammers. And think about it, if a company that is, you know the company would want a .com domain, right? No company will want another domain. So that's why .com domains usually are the main domains. So if you have a software, you can use get, software.com, whatever the thing you have, right? Next is, like I told you, okay, people can spoof your email IDs. In that case, set up DKIM, right? Set up SPF, and there's a thing called a record called SPF all. And if you don't know this, you can Google about this. But SPF all, what it says is, okay, all emails go from this. Usually when we're setting G Suite, this happens is all emails that we're sending are going from only this server, these MX records of Google, right? DMARC and DIMI are new things, but DMARC is very important these days. If you don't set up DMARC, Google will make your emails go into spam for no reason, just because you don't have DMARC. Basically, what DMARC does is, like, it tells you, okay, it tells the webmaster that who is sending emails or from their name, right? So every email provider, for example, Yahoo, will send an email back to you. Okay, we got an email from this domain, right? So you set up the DMARC in the domain. So the Yahoo looks up the domain, sees the DMARC records, and send an email to that person. Okay, this is the email we got for just the record of the webmaster. Next is BIMI. This is a new thing, but what it basically does is it adds your signature to every email, right? And this is becoming more and more important, and Yahoo has not rolled it out. This is, basically what happens is, if you see this email has come via Akshat@bizamps.pro via SENDGRID, right? But over time, what will happen is, these are called kind of the footnotes or footprints, right? Now what happens is that BMI is a big footprint of the logo of the company or the signature of the company in each email, right? It's another validation point. Okay, uh, it's another validation point. The email source from where the email is coming is not a spoof. It's the main email. Okay, here's the thing. Another thing is, when you're sending emails out, you cannot send emails out to email IDs that don't exist. So for example, do you usually call uh, on numbers that do not exist, right? You might do it once in a blue moon. You usually don't do that because you usually only call your friends and you know their numbers, and if they change their numbers, they tell you, you update them. but you usually don't do that. But in email, what happens is the same thing principles are on email. If they say, okay, you're emailing a bunch of people whose email IDs don't exist, I mean they are not your friends, right? They have not given you the right email ID. So in that case, your reputation in some way is not good. Like you don't have the people don't want you to contact them. That's why they have not given you the right email ID. The very next thing is it the right target market? So for example, so I usually get a lot of emails for people selling me lead generation services. And I'm like, why? Like if you send me a lead generation course, I might think about it, but services, I do the same thing. And those emails I hit spam because never in my lifetime, probably, I will ever want lead generation services, right? Because that's one thing I specialize in. And think about this happens a lot. So if you are emailing people who will say, I'll never have a requirement for this thing ever, they will mark it as spam. So it makes sure whenever you get a list from your client or your internal list, go through put their email IDs in Google, see their LinkedIn profiles, a bunch of them, do a random check and see, are they the right people? If they're not the right people, start with people who seem right, start with the right segment of the audience and then expand out, right? But start with the best audience so that even your email reputation in the start is good. Last is URL redirect. So let's say I'm sending emails from Bizamps.agency. So Akshat@Bizamps.agency. So I have to make sure that Bizamps.agency is redirect to my website, because people, what they will do is they will actually Google. If you don't have a link in your email, they will check you out before you reply, before they reply. So they will put your domain name in Google search and see, who is this person, what are they all about, what's their value proposition. If they want more information, they're not going to ask you for more information, especially introverts in tech. What they're going to do is they're going to Google that, right? So in that case, make sure whichever email domain you're emailing from, it redirects to the right place or redirects to somewhere that's right. Okay, so now let's say you have set this thing up. These things are mostly one-time thing, right? Every time you get a new domain, this tech setup you're gonna do once, right? You get a new list, you're gonna do once. Warm up, debugging, and next things you might do again and again. So whenever there is so for example, when we warm up, be it mass email or cold email. In mass email, you can become a bit more aggressive, but I would not suggest. But in cold email, the first day you email 10 people. Second day you email 20. Ideally, the people you know or who will reply or who will open. 35, 50, and so on. And on cold emails, if you see, I have mentioned a C in front of 150. Per email ID, when you're doing cold email, try to limit it at 150. If you're seeing great open rates at 150, then you go to the next level. But when you're doing cold email and if you want to send out 100,000 emails, what you can do is you can say, okay, I'm sending, let's say 3,000 or let's say 5,000 emails per email ID per month. So all you need is 20 email IDs, right? And from 20 email IDs, you can scale it, multiply that thing by 20 to 100,000. If my math is wrong, please excuse. But yeah, the next thing is, if you are doing mass email via SENDGRID or something else, then you can scale it up all the way to 1,000 or 10,000, right? If you keep going in that sequence. But yeah, warm up is very important. And when you're warming up, see how your open rates are, or see where, if you're sending it to internal email IDs, where are they ending up, right? The next thing is message throttling. So usually in software, so if I have in my mail viz, so usually what I can do is I can update it and I can mention, okay, after how long of a pause or a spend do I have to send it, right? How many hourly do I send it? When in starting, you can make sure to throttle your email so you don't have to do it manually, right? And do daily quota, set up these daily quotas, and on other softwares like Outplay, you will have these in your settings as well. Every software, most likely automation software, will have that. So throttle your message. You don't need to do it manually. You can automate this thing, right? Okay, next thing. Now, by the way, if you have not seen one of my videos, that's a 43-minute video called Automate B2B lead generation from newbie to enterprise. It's a 43-minute video. If you like this thing and you want to know all my secrets, go watch that video. But in that video, I talked about something called micro workers. So micro workers are the people you pay 10 cents and you say, okay, sign up, put your email ID in this box, you will get an email. All you have to do is report it not spam and mark it as safe sender. Click on the emails. The reason that thing is important is because when you are simultaneously warming up, this happens together when you warm up. Keep that in mind. This thing happens together when you warm up. Is that you keep sending that the micro workers make sure your reputation is higher because they're replying and engaging with your emails, while warming up is happening slowly. So it shows the email, okay, not every email is spam. Like some people actually want the emails, right? And same thing for from your internal ID. From your internal ID, keep a check. Like don't do all your internal ID in one day. Spread your internal IDs throughout the days. So you can see, okay, when we are in 10 day 10, and we have scaled it up to, let's say, 100 emails a day. The emails that are coming, did it came to my primary inbox for my internal email ID, or did it came to some other email inbox, right? And that will also keep you on the pulse of where your emails are ending up, right? Okay, the next thing is debugging. So GMAS has this interesting thing called uh, gmas.inbox, and there are multiple tools that you can do. But basically what you do is you send a mass email simultaneously. If you want to check the pulse, and let's say you don't have internal email IDs when you start with it, or you have used all the internal email IDs, then you can send this email to these emails and see where your emails are ending up, right? You can see all these people are using this already. Similarly, same thing with mail tester. Mail tester is another website. This is usually for mass emails, but you send an email to if you go to mailtester.com, you can see the mailtester, put .com. Send the email and see where your emails are ending up. Not only where your emails are ending up, they will give you a score, like where things you can improve, right? If your emails are, they will tell you if your emails will end up in some sort of a spam list, right? So basically, are they blacklisted by few spam services that tell you, okay, these emails from this IPs or emails are spam, right? So you do use mail tester, which is a must. Use Glock apps. Glock apps is the same thing. They give you an email ID. What they do is they're more for content. So when you send the email ID to them, then they resend that email from 3 different services. I think it's from SendFox and 2 other, and SENDGRID and 2 other. And what actually ends up happening is that you see, okay, how your content, uh, how is it working out? Like how spammy is kind of your content, where it's usually ending up when they're sending from 3 different services, right? Custom link tracking. Okay, so what happens is when you're starting with service like SendGrid or some other service, you are enticed to turn on link tracking, and you do turn on link tracking, but you set up a custom domain for it. Because what happens is, let's say some person who used SendGrid as a service sent a mass email, and that email ended up, the link on that email was a spammy link or a phishing link, right, or a hacking link. The whole the whenever they see whenever the ESPs, the email service providers, see that link again, they're gonna mark your email spam. So in that case, if you have your own custom thing, at least you know, okay, from my email they might be going out spam, but it might not be hacking emails, which are the worst, right? And spam is sometimes usually subjective also. Cold emails are not completely spam, but sometimes mostly spam is spam. Cold emails are spam. Check for spam words. You can Google a list of spam words, see if words like free, stuff like that, uh, right? Viagra, they are spam words. If they show up on your email, they will like, okay, this email has a higher chance of being a spam, because mostly when you're talking to your friend, you're not saying such things, that you're not using some words. Like again, I told you what I heard from the guide of QuickMail. It's a nice guide QuickMail has on their website. You can see the 2020 guide. Another is engagement-based sunsetting policies. So this is what I do personally also. So so I have 2 pieces of software. One is cold and one is warm. So what I do is I see the people who are engaging on my, let's say on SendGrid, who are engaging again and again on my emails. I take these people, and the people who are the most warmest, I put it in another software. And all these people are highly engaged with me. So every time my email goes, the chances are from that software, the email ends up at a better folder level. But also what I see is when sometimes what I see is if let's say in 6 months, a particular person has never opened my email in the last 6 months, I delete that person, right? Because I want my reputation very important. So I took that person up and I put them in my cold campaign, right? So I don't want to, if you see, I manage reputation of your main domain differently from where you're sending invoices or some other very important email. From a cold emailing, you get a new domain on a different cold emailing software, and then you get something in between where the people are warm and highly engaged, but that email service is a bit more mass blast. So I use personally called something called SendFox. They have a lifetime subscription on AppSumo for for $49. So it's not expensive. You pay one time, and I usually run these people through my automation, and even the prospects I run. Then you see the open rates are 40%. They're high, very high click rate because these people are engaged. These are not cold, all of them. While the cold could look something very bad, I'll show you them. Okay, next thing, psychology. So this is something that you have to test. So if you see, I have written psychology plus test. Why? Because what happens is the name from which you are emailing matters. So for example, if I'm emailing from the name of, I don't know, Kim Kardashian, right? My email might get opened. And actually, if that email ends up in my primary inbox, right? Or stuff like that, right? And usually what we say is when you're sending via email, the name of the, if you can have an email from the name of Jasmine. So it's a female name and it's a name that is common across all countries. The chances are people are much more likely to open that email because they might know a Jasmine or they can relate to a Jasmine, right? Second thing, image. So the small icon, make sure when you're setting up your account, put your email, put your image in that new domain. This thing matters because if sometimes when you open your mobile inbox, you don't recognize it, but sometimes there's a left side, there are circular images, and sometimes that catches your attention, especially if it's in a bright or a contrasting color. So do that and test it. Okay, now when you're sending a cold email, don't ask something right off the gate, give something. So what I usually do is I usually send them one of my best videos that gives all my information and secrets for free. And of course, I don't get the best response, but people who go through that video, they actually come back to me and we have a proper conversation that converts them into one of the sales prospect. And what I've seen is when you send someone a cold email, right? They don't know much about you. So it's better you give them some way to know a bit more about you so that they can judge if your service may be good for them, and then they can reply. So I usually in the body I offer something for free, and usually a link that shares my secret, something that's different, that is unique, and something you have really put an effort on. Personalization. So if all emails have the same body, not even the different first line. I'm not talking about first name, but everyone has the same thing. It's very easy to mark them as spam because ESP know every email that's going out from this email or every email that is uh, coming from this email have the same email content. So that's not personalized, right? So in that case, make sure you can personalize. You can personalize either via having a first line or you can personalize via industry. So if you see on the, let me go to this thing. Yeah, so you can personalize based on industry. So people usually think if I'm in a different industry, so think of it, for example, your industry. See, like dynamics of your industry will be different, right? So you're more likely to say, okay, this service is for my industry, so this much more cohesive for me, right? Similarly, you can also customize the first line. First line is you look at a person's LinkedIn profile, you find something unique that cannot be copy pasted, and you put it you know, you put it as a mail merge field and you note that thing in an Excel. And then when you're mail merging, the first line automatically gets mail merged different for different people. Like first names, which is for different people, first line is different of every person. So when the person is previewing the email on their computer, they see the first line the preview text, the first line, they can kind of on desktop, they can see what the first line is. They can see, okay, this does not look a copy paste line, right? Also, when you're doing a custom tracking link, especially, please avoid bit.ly, because bit.ly might have been used by spammer for free, right? Plain text and HTML, especially when you're doing something mass campaign, you can also once try plain text and see if that gets you reply. In some cases it gets reply. You will be amazed. Next thing is subject line and consistency. So for example, a subject line could be free iPhone. First of all, that will end up in spam folder, but let's just say it ends up in the main folder and your email says free iPhone for Akshat. There are very less chances you will be giving it, and inside you will say, okay, there's a free iPhone for you, but only if you buy this car, right? So the consistency is bad, so people will turn off and mark your spam. So make sure the subject line you have generates curiosity. I personally love a subject line called quick question about company, or we use something, a single word thing like leads, just in the first line is just one word, leads, something your friend might do, just one word subject line. Or we use a smiley, like a hot burning smiley, and we send that. So test subject lines, and if you test one subject line, one. If you do two. So mark it over here so that internally when you're creating this documentation for your internal company, make sure you mark these things. Okay, if you have done this, how much you have done this. So for example, when you're doing warm up, okay, I'm almost in the 50 range, so I've done 20, this much percent. Okay, I'm almost completed, and this is only for cold email. I have done 150, so mark it fully. So yeah, so this is another way. So fill this, uh, fill this information, especially for my employees. You can do it for your team or for your reference as well. Next thing is signature. So usually what happens is people also check out the signature. So okay, we solved that the name is usually the name, like a Jasmine name is very common name, or a John is very common across different countries. But if you have a local address or a phone number in the signature of the recipient, so if you're emailing someone in India and you have a local phone number that's India that starts with +91 and 98 something, chances are you get, like, I feel you are local and it's much more easier for me to connect with someone of the same country than for another country. This is, people believe in this thing and this is what people do. And in one of the case studies I found, and this case study was done by, I think, I don't know, it was not Gong, but it was someone else. But what they found was uh, it was done by Sales Loft. And what they found was that Hispanic names usually get a higher response rate. I don't know why, but that's what it happens. So now quickly what I'm going to do is I'm going to also show you how to set up SENDGRID and Mailwiz, right? So Mailwiz is usually set up on your own virtual private server, which is a domain. So for that, what we do is, this is the documentation. You can go Google this thing and you will find the documentation. It's very easy. So you go sign up on SendGrid and you do two-factor authentication. You authenticate your DKIM, everything else, right? What I mentioned, do everything. And then when you buy the API plan, you create a new API key. That's it. Just click on that button. It will create you a new API key and click full access. It will give you an API key. You go into Mailwiz and backend part of it. Go into delivery server. Put the name of the API key over here, put the API key over here, put your first from email, the name from which email will go, hourly quota, and this when you're throttling the message, monthly quota, pause after each send. This is also milliseconds, so it will be like 12 seconds, I think, what I have put it over here, right? If you are using a tracking domain, please put that. Reply to, from, if someone replies, who do you reply from? From is always forced, yes, and then you save it, right? And after you save this thing, what you do is you go back to delivery server, and over here it will come to validate your email. So you put an email ID that you own, and you will receive an email like this, and you click over here and validate the email address, validate the server, right? And next thing is, you go into delivery server. If you're emailing, right, you disable the server. Like I had my own SMTP server, so I paused it, and the only thing that's enabled right now is SendGrid server. So now I can go to my customer panel. I'll go to my customer panel, and you can see my current SMTP was not working great. That's why I switched it to this new thing. You can see the open rate was just 7%. It was burnt. I was simultaneously a Pico worker, so I've now changed it to SENDGRID, and I'm hopefully will see a bump over here. Okay, I think if you like the video, please subscribe to the channel. You see, we do very in-depth videos, and see other videos. You will know everything you want to know about B2B lead generation. And this is more about scaling one component, that's email. In the future, we will talk about scaling every component and scaling lead generation, scaling sales, and how does the costing affect, what is the costing in the real life, and what you can expect. Cool. Have a great day. Cool. Bye bye.